welcome back to another episode of Tainted Warriors. I'm Mikey.
I'm Nicole, and this week we're just going to talk to you about, I guess, some current, disasters happening worldwide, or that have recently happened, like wildfires, flooding, things of that nature. Kind of let you know that nature is fighting back a little.
Stuff is getting weird.
Right? Things you wouldn't expect are, hey, we're here. We're ready. Right. Before we do that, we're going to get into our question of the week. We're going to go a little more light questioned and not so deep. It's just, have you ever dined and dashed?
Well, I bet you there's a lot of people out there that are going to probably expect me to say yes. But, no, I have not. Mm-hmm. I feel like, that's a little too...
extreme?
Yeah. Like to sit down and blatantly have somebody wait on you, somebody else cook your meal,
right?
And then to just leave them. No, I guess maybe if you left like a tip, like if you threw $20 down and said, "Yo, girl, split this between you and the cook."
No one does that though.
Right? They wouldn't. Well, and they wouldn't be able to, right? Because they'd have to use it towards the bill.
Right.
But I'm just saying, I
wonder how it counts though. Like, I'm a little gray in that area because what if you left your wallet at home? Like, then maybe if you went back to pay for it, then I think you'd get like an excuse. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, but then I don't think it's considered dining and dash.
Technically, it is until you go back to pay for it, though, right?
I mean, yeah.
I don't know, but I mean, I have never dined and dashed either. I'm pretty sure that my mom would bitch slap me if she ever found out I did. I mean, we all know someone in the service industry, so I just feel like when you do it, maybe you should think of them. Like, would you want this done to your friend or you if you were in that industry? Like, no.
Right.
Like, because even if the waiter or server doesn't have to pay for it out of their own pocket, like, it's still, like, just disheartening. Like, right. Really? Like, I gave you decent service and you just ran out without even paying.
Right. And I mean, they don't get to control what section they have. So right. You just took money pretty much once again out of their pocket because they could have had another family that didn't sit down and eat and pay for their meal and tip. So right. You're right. You need, it needs to be thought about.
I mean, don't do bad things though. Just be a good person. Like,
at least try.
But I guess we're going to take you into our episode now. So first, we all know about wildfires. I threw some facts about them in here. So if you don't know about a wildfire, what is it? It's an unplanned, uncontrolled fire in an area of combustible vegetation. So basically an area like of plants and whatnot that are easily lit on fire and burned.
Like, dry, foresty areas. I don't know about like the rainforests or Amazons. Do they catch a chance of being...
I think they do because you can have like drought seasons and stuff or like not seasons that aren't as wet, which is a lot of the problem, I think. Right now, a lot of areas are going through droughts.
There's so many different climate changes. Places that need to be wet aren't wet. Places that should be dry are getting flooded. But it's not real, guys. It's not real.
Right. I don't know what you're talking about. What climate change? It's
right.
Exactly the same.
Right.
So, as of August 27th, there were currently 88 active large fires in the United States. A large fire basically burns more than like a specified area of land. It has a size and intensity, which is kind of like abnormal. Like, it's determined by the weather conditions above the surface and its own like convection column, which is the column where all the gases and sparks and like debris and everything are raising up. So I don't know if you've ever seen like a wildfire, but there's been like tornado looking shits in them.
Yeah, like, it does. It gets crazy.
Yeah, so, like, obviously that weather right there, like, those wind conditions and everything are a little bit different than what's happening not in the fire zone. So, there's 88 of those kinds of fires going on right now. There's 21 in Montana, 9 in Idaho, 16 in Washington, 12 in California, 9 in Oregon, 3 in Wyoming, 2 in Nevada, 2 in Minnesota, 1 in Colorado, 1 in New Mexico, and 1 in South Dakota. That's a lot of different places.
Right.
There are 2 of the active fires that are contained, but so far in just those fires alone, there's more than 2,481,000 acres that have been burned.
What?
Yeah. In total so far this year, there's been over 4,870,000 acres burned in about 42,000 fires.
Oh my God.
So the world's burning.
Right? Like, really, half the world is burning, the other half's drowning.
There's actually fires all around the world right now, like not just in the United States either, in other countries. I have one in a minute that I'll go over, but first, I just wanted to kind of touch on one of these fires. It's the Dixie Fire in Northern California. It's the second largest fire and 14th most destructive on record. It's only 45% contained, and it's burned through 740,000 acres roughly as of August 26th. It evacuated 5 counties, and CAL FIRE said in an incident report, or an incident update, quote, under these drought conditions, wildfires are burning rapidly with extreme severity and have traveled up to 8 miles in a single day. Fuel conditions are much worse than previous years, and along with the wind, is causing much greater fire spread. Firefighters are experiencing conditions never seen before, such as increased spread rates, spotting, and active nighttime burning. That's just crazy to me. Like, the fact that it's a fire. You think of fire, I don't know, they move slow, don't they? Like,
right, but I feel like isn't the problem because, like, combustible gas that's, like,
right,
that
it's got all the
producing,
gases
and it's, like, making it, and then, obviously, with the tree being next to it,
no, right, like, I get it. I'm saying that's nuts, though. Like, that's
right,
not good.
Right,
like,
no, because you're right. You would feel like, no matter what type of fire, like, you would think that you should be able to put it out.
Right.
Like, you know, we have ways of stopping grease fires and those are, like, has anybody thrown fucking dirt and flour on that to see how, you know, like, maybe water's not the best idea.
I mean, water is bad in a grease fire, right? Doesn't that make it go up in flames?
Yeah.
Just a little tip, if anybody needs it, doesn't know, don't throw
from
water.
Your cooks here, you know, don't throw water on that.
No grease. Water plus grease equals bad.
And then my other question is, do we know what's causing, like, what starts these? Do we ever find out?
Different things.
I know that, like, lightning hitting a tree can spark, you know, if, like, the gas.
It could be like someone threw a cigarette out the window. There was a wildfire last year that was started by someone's gender reveal party. Something went wrong, and it ended up starting a fire, and it just massively burned.
Wow, I did not know that.
Yeah, so it's really, there's many things that can start it, and I think maybe, I don't know if everywhere does this, but I feel like I've heard of somewhere doing, like, controlled burns. So, like, there's obviously, like you said, dry leaves and stuff on foliage on the ground. So, I think sometimes they try to just burn that stuff in a controlled method, so it's less likely to have wildfires.
Right.
But then I don't know how all that works, so I don't know if that's something that everywhere is doing, if it was stopped, because I know a lot of the forest protections were, like, in recent years, were altered, so not as many things were protected or things were being done differently.
Right.
But the crazy thing about the Dixie fires, it's not the number one priority for California. The Caldor fire is the number one priority, which since August 14th has burned 136,000 acres and is only 12% contained.
And these have all started this year, right?
Yes, everything's from this year.
Crazy.
Right. So you mentioned, like, half the world's on fire and half of it's drowning, right? So we'll get to the flooding, because that is happening. He's not wrong. Right. But it's not like west and east side's burning. Like, everywhere is burning. There's 170 fires burning in Russia. And nearly 100 of them are in the northeastern Siberia area.
What?
Their wildfires are now larger than the rest of the world's wildfires combined. And the largest fire that they have going right now is on record to become the largest single wildfire ever recorded in human history.
That's crazy.
Right. There's a man named Grigory Kukskin. I don't have a Russian accent, so I probably said that weird. But he was the head of Greenpeace Russia's wildfire unit. He said that the unprecedented blazes are basically because of climate change, causing Russia's forests to be drier, hotter, and increasingly prone to wildfires.
I'm so glad that you had that there, because I was just about to say, I didn't even think Russia had temperatures to...
Right, we always think
contain
cold.
A fire, right? I literally was like, I was just listening so intently this whole time, because I was like, wait,
It's weird, right? Because I thought the same thing. That's why I wrote it down.
I always thought that Russia was like cold. It
is,
snowed most of the time, so that's sad that a place that when you first associate snow and cold,
right.
and you hear they have 100 fires, forest fires, like that's crazy.
That's a lot.
But yeah, it's not real.
To talk about how much they actually have burned just this season. They have had 17.08 million hectares burned, and they beat the previous record that was set in 2012. So one of those is equal to 100 acres. So that means basically that there have been, I asked Google to say the number for me, 1,780,000,000 acres burned. So that's almost 2 billion acres. These wildfires, because of that, obviously, when wildfires burn, there are greenhouse gases that are emitted, like carbon dioxide, for example. So these wildfires have doubled the greenhouse gas emission record. They have emitted more carbon dioxide in 2.5 months than the world's 6th most polluted country. So Germany is the world's 6th most polluted country per year. They don't even generate as much greenhouse gas as these wildfires are doing right now in a year. These fires have produced 800 megatons of, I believe it was carbon dioxide, since the beginning of June. And so this was like August, I think 26th or 27th that this article I read had come out. So that's a lot, I feel like. And if it keeps going, like if we can't control it, what does that mean?
It means we're screwed, I feel like.
I mean, even if you don't believe in climate change, you can't deny that that's carbon dioxide that's going to go up into the atmosphere. And if I remember science, doesn't that warm up the atmosphere?
Yeah. Well, I guess, and I mean, if you even want to get into a more basic level, we can't contain these fires, so I guess you can't contain them. And there's already been over a billion acres burned in one place. Well, there can't be that. I mean, yes, there's probably still a lot more, but there can't be many more billions of acres for this fire to keep burning every year with us to be okay, you know, like
annual fires of billions of acres lost isn't gonna make a sustainable future.
And that's just right. And that's just for this year. I mean, can you imagine what next year might bring? Next year might be, we might hit over the 2 billion mark. That's 3 billion acres that have already been burned in the last 2 years.
And that's just Russia. Like, that doesn't even count.
Right.
We're already...
I didn't even know Russia could be 2 billion acres big.
Right? So far this year, we're at just under 5 million acres. So, I mean, no, that's not billions, but like...
But I mean, but then we still... You gotta think, we don't have much room, like...
We don't have as much
surface area, yeah.
I should have looked into Alaska to see if they had any kind of fires that happened.
If they do, then I'm scared, because Alaska is frozen.
Alaska does have some other stuff going on, though, that I'll get into in a little bit.
Oh,
yeah, it was a little weird. I guess it's not too uncommon, but we'll get to that. So that's all the information I have for wildfires. There are plenty, though, so... I gave like 3. If you want to go look, there's 88 active just in the U.S.
Right, and that's for this year. I mean, if you want to go back last year, let's look at that huge, right? Wasn't it last year with the really big one in California?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the one that was like started by the gender reveal power.
Really?
Yeah, I think that's why I remember it, because it was such a huge fire, and they have to pay the damages.
Yep.
Yeah, which I don't even know. I don't even think a human can make that much money in their lifetime, unless you're like Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos. I don't think you're ever gonna make that much.
I mean, that destroyed a lot of houses and
it destroyed a lot of everything.
Yeah,
that's why these wildfires are devastating, because they don't care what's in their path. There are communities that are destroyed. There are whole freaking towns. Like,
and I feel like if
Phoenix. In 1913, we had a great fire. We could have been as big as Syracuse, but that fire wiped out our whole little town. Everything. And it wasn't even a wildfire. It was just started at a wood factory, I think.
Yeah, it was like
the wood caught on fire, and everything that was nearby went up too.
And it's like, you know, I feel like if every person just cared a little bit more about the earth and did a little bit more to help. I mean, I don't believe you have to live your life full 100% green. You know what I mean? Like, I do get that people are going to emit these oxygen.
You can't be perfect.
Yes, but if we just did a little bit more, So, like, the next time you go to the store and you think about it, should you grab that can? You know what I mean? Or maybe look to see if there's a biodegradable package
I actually
option.
thought about that when I was cleaning this morning. I cut up some of the plastic rings that 6-pack bottles come in.
Mm-hmm.
And as I'm cutting it up, I'm like, how ridiculous is this that we're cutting it up because we don't know if it's going to end up in the ocean.
Right.
We don't want animals to get stuck. And, like, it's been that way since childhood.
I've had a friend that literally, she made every time they finished a 6-pack and they bought 6-packs, clipped that up. And I was like, you know what? I can't even lie. I never thought about it. So, and then I started doing it. And I figured, you know, that's not my only contribution, but that's a contribution that I added to be enough. Like, you know what? Right. It doesn't hurt me.
Now the turtle can escape.
Exactly. And my straws, like if I do use a plastic straw, what I do is I cut it down after I'm done with it. That way it's not still rolled up. Like I'll cut it in half. That way it's kind of like, it's 2 pieces. So, I mean, maybe if it does end up like, I feel like that's good though. Like nothing could really get stuck if you're cutting it in half. Right.
Like it might. I mean, I guess maybe it could be sharp, but that's.
I mean, I can't.
If I'm a fish, I'd rather get a little bit of cut on my scale than to get stuck in a straw.
That's true. Right. So it's like, you know, just little things to think about that. You know, I'm not going to go out and drink from paper straw. I can't lie. No, I don't want to do that. But I will.
Straws. I use too many plastic bottles. I admit that. But I'd like to think that the fact that I take them back to like bottle and can places means that they're going to get recycled and repurposed. Right. So they shouldn't end up in the ocean.
Do the same thing. You see it. So
like, I don't like things. We shouldn't just have things flying. Like I see things on the highway flying out of cars onto the ground. Like
a diaper. Get your for real. Situated. Like why would you throw a diaper out of your car in the middle of the highway?
Right.
Like I get it if your baby shit or whatever and it stinks in your car, but that's parenthood. That's what the fuck happened. You take the rest of that 20-minute ride with your windows down, I guess.
My dog did that. You know what I did? I put it in the trunk.
Oh, there you go.
And the trunk smelled, but it was a lot easier to air out the trunk. And I didn't vomit on my way home.
Right.
And then there was one time I was close and I literally just put it on the roof of the car and drove slow.
It would just be crazy if, you know, like, if everybody did it, if we could actually see. I feel like it doesn't take much for us to see a big change. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think it really would because there's so many of us, and if all of us did that little bit of a change,
right,
it's got to have at least a good
the whole reason the EPA exists. In the 70s, there weren't laws about like disposal, so you could just walk in there like a field and it'd be full of refrigerators and old tires, like old shit people didn't want, but just didn't know how to dispose of. So I mean, like it's worth it to do little things. That was way a tangent.
Sorry, didn't mean to. But I mean, it does feel like because I do feel like it kind of fits into these things though, because it's like I feel like with the litter and everything that, you know, all the natural gas that we're letting off, it's causing things to happen. And I feel like it does affect more in the flood section that you're about to cover. Right. So I feel like that's why I wanted to put this little section in first. Because, like, all of these changes would probably prevent half of what you're about to say.
I even do have one flood example where, like, humans are partially to blame. So, I don't know which one it is. So I'll just get started.
Let's get into it.
So, the Henan province in China, there were recently just 2 cities that issued the highest level flood warnings. They were, like, these warnings are so high that, like, they warn of possible, like, dam collapses and extraordinary, like, simultaneous flooding. So, like, multiple areas being flooded at the same time. They indicated that there was going to be more than 4 inches of rainfall within 3 hours. Which, yeah, that does sound like a lot, you know what I mean? But I guess I'm used to seeing things drain properly and, like, not having it backed up. But there are times where I've seen, like, flooded areas. So, like, that 4 inches is a lot if you actually stop and think about it.
I guess even if you think about it in our perspective of, like, the river you know, think about the river that we drive by, by. If 4 inches got added to that water right now,
it'd be like
that'd probably bring the water It'd probably bring that water up at least onto the road a little bit, and you know, so
it's a lot.
It is. But I do understand what you're saying too, though, is that and I also feel like it depends on how you're prepared. It's like obviously up here we know that we get rain and we know that we have a lot of bodies of water, so I feel like our
I do feel like it's getting worse though.
Oh, it is, because then you can see it. Like once it downpours, even in Phoenix. Yeah. Once it downpours, that street gets flooded way worse than I ever remember it being.
Right.
And I've lived here almost my whole life.
So the Henan province, again, still talking about them, they had record rainfall in July that actually caused floods that killed over 300 people and like even made some factories have to suspend production. Which, if you think about it, that's China. If you're in the U.S., you know China is literally like, it's on everything. There's nothing basically that you can look at that doesn't say made in China.
Right.
Unless maybe it says made in Taiwan, or you purposefully look for something that says made in America.
Right.
Like, I'd say, figuring low, at least 80% of the stuff is made in China. And if you use Wish, then your percentage is way up higher.
It's 100.
Right. Everything except your house itself was made in China.
Yeah.
But, I mean, so that's a lot, I feel like, for them to have to shut down production. I don't feel like that's something that anyone would take lightly in China.
No, not at all.
But China isn't the only one that's faced with flooding. So Turkey's had a hell of a time, too. Apparently, they had some wildfires happen in southern Turkey. But then after that, they had to face severe floods and mudslide along the Black Sea coast, which killed at least 57 people, severed 5 different bridges, demolished homes, like, you know, the neighborhoods, etc. This is the one that they have partially blamed it on climate change, but a lot of the reason that it was so bad is because there was a riverbed. Like, every river has a riverbed, which I think is like an opening or something. I didn't really look at
I think that's what that means.
But it's like the mouth of the river, basically.
Yeah.
Originally, it was like pretty freaking wide. I didn't write down how big it was originally. I want to say it was like 200 feet wide originally. Well, the humans in the area, they decided it'd be a good idea to narrow that down to 15 feet for some reason. Which left, obviously, excess water nowhere to be. And it just, like, kind of aided with the flooding because it's like, all right. But they do think, obviously, so like that might have like led to some flooding. But I feel like they were saying climate change made it a little bit worse than what it would have been if it were just like a normal thing. You know what I mean?
Right. But I mean, that changing it from 200 feet to 50 or to 15.
15, yeah. I'll have to see.
What was more important that was going there?
Well, I think it was like they built like a city or a community around it or something. So basically what it always is humanity wants more room to build buildings and stupid stuff and
you got kind of what you deserve, I feel, in that situation. I can't even lie. That's such a funny coincidence right there of like, can you picture that meeting? That town meeting of like, we don't need that room. We have never had a flood. We're not gonna flood. We only need 15 feet. We did the measurements. We did the math. We're gonna do it.
Like, did you
they get it all done, and then it's like, oh yeah, God was like, boom, mic drop.
Literally.
I love it.
So, and obviously we have our own flooding going on here in the United States as well. In McEwen, Tennessee, on August 21st, there were 17 inches of rain that fell. That was a new state record, which caused flash flooding in lower elevations. So this town, I guess, sat up higher in elevation. So as it flooded, the water, of course, is going to flow downward. And it flowed downward to the lower elevations, and entire neighborhoods were literally, like, washed away. It was like a town of Waverly. There were at least 22 people dead.
Is that where Selena Gomez is from?
No.
Wizard of Waverly Place?
No. No, I don't remember where they were. Alright, moving on. This little town in Western, it's a town called Western, and it's in New York State. And they're kind of up there with Turkey. They have also had one hell of a time. On July 8th, around 7:30 p.m., there was a tornado that touched down and barreled for 2 miles, creating a 100-yard wide path of destruction. And that also caused limited flooding because there were trees that had uprooted and like threw into the Mohawk River. So that swelled up and like backed up and caused flooding. Nature wasn't done with them yet though. On July 19th, there was a storm that just kind of stayed stationary over them and dropped 4 inches of rain in 2 hours, which was more than a month's worth. And that, of course, also caused additional flash flooding and washed away the Hillside Road Bridge, which apparently is about $2 million to repair, so I don't think that's been repaired yet. And then it still wasn't done. On August 19th, there were 2 to 3 inches of rain that fell in 8 hours and gave them additional flooding. And, like, I was reading that, and I'm like, where even is that? And that's in Oneida County. So that's literally only, like, an hour and a half from where we are.
Wow.
And I'm like, that's too close for my comfort.
Right.
But you had 3 different instances of flash flooding and a tornado that started it all.
Right? Especially because, like, we live close to water.
Right. We've had tornadoes in Syracuse, which is like 30 minutes away. So it's just, there's one family that owns a farm in Western New York, and, like, they are just devastated. Like, they had the tornado rip some stuff off of their barn, and, like, they had trees that were, you know, all over the property that they hadn't even cleaned up before the second flooding came in. And then they got hit with the third one. Like,
that's crazy.
It's a lot. And obviously some of them, like, I think there was something that happened in Dallas where, like, a water main broke, and, like, there was parts of Dallas that flooded. And that's not really what we're talking about here. We're talking about weird, like, nature events.
Right, like things that nature caused for that to happen. Like the tornado, the reason why the flooding happened was because of the tornado
and the massive amounts of rain.
Right.
Like, we didn't, I mean, there's a possibility the government did that because they do have patents to control the weather. I posted about those on our Facebook page. If nobody's seen them, like, I mean, I don't know how you can not believe me when I literally give you links to them. Like, it's not just me. Like, so they're out there. Like, these are things that do exist. So it is possible that maybe that could be aiding in the natural disasters, in my opinion.
Right.
Because I believe it happened somewhere when I was looking into that originally. There was somewhere that was dry and they were trying to make it rain, but then it rained too hard or something, and it basically backfired on them. So it's like, yeah, if you're playing with nature, like, nature might play back.
Right. That's what you get too.
Right. So I do have a couple other kind of oddities that I wrote down. They didn't really fit in the wildfire or the flooding area necessarily. The first one is Greenland's ice sheet, which has apparently been recording some temperatures above freezing and had rainfall at the highest point of the ice sheet for several hours. This year was the second time recorded that a surface melt has exceeded 800 square kilometers. Basically, 800,000 square kilometers of ice on Greenland's ice sheet has melted, and this is only the second time in, like, its recorded history of humanity, like, writing it down, which I think we started recording it in 1979.
Wow.
Right. So that's, like, 42 years, roughly. And this is only the second time they've seen that much ice melt. I don't know when the first one was, but I don't know why. I feel like I want to say 2012, because when I was looking at stuff, like, 2012 seemed like it was a rough year, too.
Right. I feel like 2012, that would make sense, because
it was when the world was supposed to end,
yeah,
so
like
that's why it stuck out in my head.
A lot of crazy things were going to happen.
Maybe something did happen. I don't know. And then on July 28th and 29th, there were 43 cities in southern Brazil that were hit by freezing rain and snowfall.
In Brazil?
Yeah. And just to kind of put that in perspective, this time they got over 3 feet of snow, over 1 meter. But there was one blizzard in 1957 that dropped 4 feet on them. But 1957 was, 64 years ago? So this is also obviously not something that is common. You can't say that because it happened once in history that it's, like, a thing. You know what I mean? Like, we have to watch this because these things are becoming patterns now. They aren't waiting 60 years to happen. They're waiting months or maybe 1 or 2 years, and then they're happening again.
Right.
And then I have one little fun fact that I found while researching here. According to research that was published in the Geophysical Research Letters Journal, as ice sheets and glaciers actually melt and the water from them gets redistributed amongst the oceans and, around the world, it actually lifts a weight off of Earth's crust. That causes Earth's crust to lift up. So between 2003 and 2018, melted ice from Greenland and the Arctic glaciers caused the ground to shift horizontally across much of the northern hemisphere, including parts of the US and Canada, like large parts of the US and Canada. So it's literally when these melt, the ground does shift, like maybe not drastically, But every little shift is going to impact everything else. Because think about it, what is an earthquake? That's a tectonic plate shifting.
Right.
So if Earth's crust is holding all that stuff in, and like all this stuff on it, starts shifting, like how is that really going to
That don't sound
affect, will it play a role on gravity? You know what I mean? Because
Right.
Earth's centered on the axis. Isn't that why we have gravity? Because of the rotation of Earth on the axis
I think so.
whole thing.
But that's wow.
Right, so I'm just like, that's crazy. The Earth's crust literally is like lifting up, and it makes sense because if you like think about it, if you sit on a couch cushion and then you get up, like even if you pee and leave that behind, you know what I mean? Like there's still
rises.
right, like it's
Back up.
still especially over time it rises more because your pressure is not on it anymore, and that's just you sitting there for a couple hours a night or whatever. You
Right.
know what I mean? It's not like it being on you 24 hours a day for thousands and thousands of years.
And now it's just done.
Right. All of a sudden, it just fell off into the ocean and like.
I know, and that's the other thing that's really scary too, though, is that like all these ice capsules and are
Icebergs,
icebergs and things that are
floating the oceans.
Yeah, and like I saw a meme, and I kind of took offense to it. It was the Titanic meme, and it was like, oh, this time it was talking about and it was like this time it will work because we melted all the icebergs or whatever.
Right, it was a tiny little like
and it's like
ice cube looking thing.
And it's like, for real? Like,
Right.
You think that's a joke?
Literally.
When I see a polar bear that's the size of my pinky, I want to cry.
Right.
You know, like, that's not cool.
Threatened penguins in Antarctica. There's a whole species of them that, could potentially die off because Antarctica is losing ice.
That's something I feel hits home, and I don't know why, because I'm not really a big animal person, but the fact that, like,
it's because we need
as
to
humans, we kill off whole
It's because
species.
we, as humans, we have the intelligence and enough people and enough brains to put everything together and save the world and create something like the beautiful freaking planet that it should be. But instead, we thrive in destruction for some reason. And,
Right.
even when we create, think about it this way. You want to go to work and create a life for yourself, right? How do you get there? You have to burn gas, which is destroying the ozone layer. Unless maybe you have an electric car, but then you have to get your electric power, and I don't know if all that. I don't think that's all green
Right, we
either.
don't have the
people that come
technology for that.
There's people that come to my house saying, "Here, sign up for this for green energy." You know what I mean? So that implies that normal national grid isn't as green as it could be.
Not technology. I meant to say we don't have the long-term research that we could have. You know what I mean? Nobody has been in an electric car, and you don't know what that's letting off something that could potentially harm you.
Or the environment. You really don't know.
So it's there's just little things that that it boils down to that I feel like we do have to do as humans to help save us, help save the earth.
I think it just boils down to just always try to do the right thing and do good. I mean, but that's how I was raised. So thank my mom for that one. And if you don't agree, then
this probably isn't the channel for you.
Honestly, because that's our whole thing. Just be peaceful, be accepting,
right?
Be open to new ideas, whether you think that they're crazy or not.
And I mean, I just want you to take into consideration, think about how weather was when you were maybe 5 years old, and now think about how it is now. And take into consideration of, do you notice something going on? Because I could say living in New York, I sure do.
Maybe that's part of the problem, though, is a lot of people move. So maybe people don't really realize what's happening, because if you moved, say you lived in New York until you were 18, then you went to college in Texas,
right?
And then you moved to California when you graduated at 24, and you're 37 now. You know what I mean?
You wouldn't really
if you lived in 3 different places for a third of your life in each place, then maybe you don't really get to see that change.
But I feel like if that's the case, then you need to put in your own research then. You know what I mean? You got to figure out what was it like what was that weather like back then?
And what is it now?
Right. What are you experiencing? Because I can feel we've lived here. So you can honestly see the difference of a five when we were 5 years old in summertime and summertime now. And then when we were 5 years old at wintertime and wintertime now. Right. Those are 2 completely different things. And I'm not talking just the magic and joy.
we don't even get
As a
the
kid.
snow that we used to get as
Right,
a child.
that's
Like,
what I
now
mean.
New York's like, oh, you're gonna get snow, but it's like you're gonna have four bad snowstorms a season, and it's gonna be pretty much green in between.
Yep.
Like what? I have to beg for snow on Christmas?
There was never from November all the way up until like even sometimes April, we would still have snow.
Yep.
And now we like she just explained, the snow's even starting to come down less, and
It
there's
comes
just
down
something
in
going down.
Large spurts, or not at all. It's weird. It's like extreme events almost, or nothing.
Yep. And I think that's how all of our weather is.
Right.
Extreme heat and humidity, or nothing. You're like,
Right.
or cold. Like, we're not. What happened to our fine? Where our livable temperatures are? We don't have them anymore. What's going on with
We're
them?
skipping stuff too often.
Yes.
But
With that being
as
said,
always, let us know what you guys think. Drop a comment. Even if you
Down
don't
below.
believe in climate change, let us know your reasoning so that
Right.
maybe we can see the other side.
let me know why. Right. I would like to know. Like, let me. And on yours, we gave you how we feel. Let us know how you feel. Maybe you could change our mind a little bit.
We're open. Let us know.
But with that being said, about being open, we're gonna close down this episode. That was another episode of Tainted Warriors. Bye.